The emergency klaxons screamed through the corridors of Station Omega-7, their shrill cry cutting through the metallic hum that had become as familiar as breathing to the crew. Commander Sarah Chen pressed her palm against the cool surface of the observation deck's viewport, watching the swirling nebula beyond paint the darkness in shades of purple and gold. 3 months ago, this had been humanity's most remote scientific outpost, a peaceful research station studying cosmic phenomena at the edge of known space. Now it served as the last line of defense between Earth and something that defied every law of physics they thought they understood. The creature they had designated as Subject, Alpha, floated in the containment field below, its form shifting between states of matter like liquid mercury given consciousness. The hegemony had warned them about these entities during the first contact protocols, their translator devices struggling to convey concepts that had no human equivalent. The closest approximation was reality devourers, beings that consumed the fundamental forces holding space and time together. Sarah turned as footsteps echoed behind her. Dr. Marcus Webb approached, his usually pristine lab coat stained with the peculiar blue substance that leaked from the creature's containment unit. His face bore the exhaustion of someone who had been fighting an impossible battle for weeks. "The containment field is holding, but barely," Marcus reported, running a hand through his graying hair. "The entity's energy output has increased by 30% in the last 6 hours. Our power grid won't sustain this level of drain much longer." Through the transparent aluminum barrier, Subject Alpha pulsed with an inner light that hurt to look at directly. The research team had discovered it 3 weeks ago, dormant within an asteroid that had drifted too close to their scanning array. The moment they brought it aboard for study, everything changed. The creature had awakened, and with it came a hunger that seemed to devour reality itself. "What about the hegemony fleet?" Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer from Marcus's expression. "Still 12 hours out, assuming they maintain their current velocity." The Vorthan commander was very clear that they cannot engage the entity directly. Their weapons are designed for conventional warfare, not for fighting something that exists partially outside normal space-time. Sarah nodded grimly. The hegemony represented a coalition of 7 alien species that had achieved interstellar civilization, thousands of years before humanity took its first steps into space. When they had made contact with Earth 5 years ago, it had been with warnings about ancient threats that slumbered in the dark between stars. Humanity had been offered membership in their alliance, but with it came responsibilities. Responsibilities like serving as guardians against horrors that most species fled from rather than face. The reason was simple and terrifying. Humans were different. Where other species saw impossibility and ran, humans saw puzzles to be solved. Where others felt primal fear that drove them to flee, humans felt curiosity that compelled them to understand. It was a trait that made them valuable allies and effective guardians against cosmic threats. Subject Alpha suddenly contracted, its form condensing into a sphere of writhing darkness before exploding outward again. The containment field flickered, power fluctuations sending sparks cascading from nearby control panels. Emergency lighting bathed the observation deck in harsh red illumination as the main power grid struggled to compensate. "The field generators are overloading," Marcus warned, his fingers dancing across his handheld scanner. "We have maybe 2 hours before complete failure." "Then we proceed with Protocol 7, Sarah decided, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was suggesting. Marcus stared at her in shock. Protocol 7 was theoretical, untested, and potentially suicidal. It involved exposing a human volunteer to direct contact with the entity, while wearing an experimental interface suit designed to translate human consciousness into frequencies the creature might understand. The goal was communication, but the risk was complete annihilation of the volunteer's mind. "Sarah, we don't even know if the translation matrix will work. The prototype has only been tested on simple electromagnetic patterns, not on something like this. Look at it, Marcus." Sarah gestured toward the creature below. "It's not random. There's intelligence there, pattern and purpose. The hegemony says these entities are destroyers, but what if they're wrong? What if they simply never tried to communicate?" The entity pulsed again, and for a moment Sarah could have sworn she saw recognition in its movements. It was studying them just as intently as they were studying it. The realization sent a chill down her spine, but also sparked something else. Hope. "The interface suit is in Laboratory 3, Marcus said quietly. But Sarah, if this goes wrong, if the entity overwhelms the containment field while you're connected to it, then the station is lost anyway, she finished. At least this way we might learn something useful, something that could help protect other worlds if more of these creatures wake up. They made their way through corridors lined with research equipment and monitoring stations, passing crew members who worked with grim determination, despite the impossible odds they faced. These were humanity's best and brightest. Volunteers who had signed up for peaceful scientific research and found themselves on the front lines of a cosmic war they barely understood. Laboratory 3 hummed with the power of experimental technology, banks of quantum processors working to decode the mathematical relationships that governed the entity's existence. The interface suit hung in its charging cradle like a second skin made of silver fiber and neural interface nodes. Putting it on would connect Sarah's nervous system directly to the station's most powerful computers, allowing her consciousness to be translated into patterns that might bridge the gap between human and alien thought. The hegemony will call us insane, Marcus observed as he began the suit's activation sequence. The hegemony has never faced one of these creatures and tried to understand it, Sarah replied, stepping into the suit's embrace. They run, they hide, they build bigger weapons, but they never try to talk. As the neural interface is activated, Sarah felt her awareness expand beyond the confines of her physical body. Through the station's sensors, she could perceive Subject Alpha not as a visual phenomenon, but as a complex pattern of intersecting forces and probabilities. And deep within that pattern, she sensed something that made her gasp in recognition. Loneliness. The creature was alone, cut off from its kind, trapped in a reality that was as alien to it as its existence was to humanity. For the first time since its discovery, Sarah began to wonder if they had been looking at the situation completely wrong. The neural interface suit felt like liquid fire coursing through Sarah's veins as the connection stabilized. Through the quantum processors, her consciousness touched the edge of something vast and incomprehensible. Subject Alpha's patterns became clearer, revealing layers of complexity that no conventional scanning equipment could detect. What they had interpreted as hostile energy bursts were actually attempts at communication, desperate signals sent by a being that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Dr. Webb monitored the connection from the control station, his eyes fixed on readouts that showed Sarah's brain activity, spiking into patterns never before recorded in human subjects. The interface was working, but at what cost? Her vital signs fluctuated wildly as her mind struggled to process concepts that had no equivalent in human experience. Sarah, I'm reading dangerous stress levels in your neural pathways, Marcus warned through the communication link. We should abort before permanent damage occurs. But Sarah couldn't hear him anymore. She was falling through layers of reality, her consciousness pulled deeper into the entity's domain. Images flooded her mind, memories that belonged to a species that had existed when the universe was young. She saw worlds where the laws of physics were suggestions rather than absolutes. Civilizations that built their cities from crystallized thought and sailed between stars on ships made of pure mathematics. Subject Alpha had once been part of a collective consciousness that spanned galaxies, beings who served as gardeners of reality itself. They had maintained the delicate balance between order and chaos, ensuring that the universe remained stable enough for life to flourish. But something had gone wrong. A cosmic disaster had scattered the collective, leaving individual entities stranded across space and time, unable to find their way back to their kind. The creature wasn't devouring reality out of malice. It was trying to repair damage that it perceived in the fundamental structure of space-time, using the only methods it knew. Unfortunately, those methods were incompatible with the current state of the universe, causing destructive feedback loops that appeared as reality distortions to outside observers. Sarah felt the entity's recognition as her consciousness touched its awareness. For the first time in eons, it wasn't alone. Through her, it began to understand that the smaller beings it had encountered, the ones that fled in terror, were actually alive and intelligent. The revelation shocked it into stillness. Contact established, Sarah gasped, her voice carrying through the laboratory speakers. It's not hostile. It's lost and trying to find its way home. Marcus watched in amazement as Subject Alpha's energy pattern shifted from chaotic pulses to more organized waves. The containment field's power drain decreased noticeably as the entity stopped fighting against its boundaries. On the monitoring screens, complex mathematical formulae began appearing, transmitted directly through the neural link. "It's showing me something," Sarah continued, her voice strained but excited. "Coordinates, I think, but not in three-dimensional space. It's trying to map pathways through dimensions we don't even have names for." The hegemony fleet chose that moment to arrive, their massive ships dropping out of hyperspace with all weapons charged. Commander Sarah Chen felt their presence through the entity's enhanced awareness, and she realized with growing horror that the aliens intended to destroy the station to prevent the creature from escaping. "Marcus, you need to contact the hegemony fleet immediately," she ordered. "Tell them we've achieved communication. The entity is cooperating." But even as Marcus frantically transmitted their findings, Sarah could sense the hegemony's response through their quantum communication arrays. Disbelief, followed by orders to evacuate all personnel before they commenced bombardment. To the coalition of alien species, the very idea of communicating with a reality devourer was impossible and dangerous. Subject Alpha sensed the approaching threat and began to panic. Its form started shifting erratically as it prepared defensive measures that would tear apart local spacetime. Sarah felt the creature's desperation and made a decision that would change everything. "I'm going deeper," she announced, ignoring Marcus's protests. "If the hegemony won't listen to words, maybe they'll understand actions." She pushed her consciousness further into the neural link, accepting deeper integration with the entity's thought patterns. The risk was enormous, potentially irreversible, but it was the only way to prevent a disaster that would destroy not just the station, but possibly destabilize this entire region of space. The transformation was immediate and terrifying. Sarah's human awareness began to fragment as alien concepts flooded her mind. She experienced existence from the entity's perspective, feeling the currents of spacetime like wind against her skin. The universe revealed itself as a vast web of interconnected forces, and she could see how Subject Alpha's presence was causing stress fractures in that delicate structure. But she also saw the solution. Working together, human intuition and alien knowledge could repair the damage without destroying anything. It would require precise manipulation of quantum fields at the subatomic level, something that neither species could accomplish alone but might manage in partnership. The process began automatically as Sarah's enhanced consciousness merged more completely with the entity's capabilities. Through the station's modified sensors, they began mapping the local distortions in spacetime, identifying the points where reality had been stretched too thin. Then, with surgical precision that amazed even Marcus, they began the delicate work of restoration. The hegemony fleet detected the changes immediately. Their instruments showed impossible readings as the space around Station Omega-7 began stabilizing in ways that defied their understanding of physics. The chaotic energy signatures that had marked the entity's presence were being systematically eliminated, replaced by harmonic patterns that actually strengthened the local spacetime matrix. "Hegemony Command. This is Station Omega-7, Marcus transmitted, his voice carrying a mixture of pride and terror as he watched Sarah work. "We have achieved successful communication and cooperation with the entity. Repeat, the threat has been neutralized through diplomatic contact." The response came in the form of a single ship breaking formation and approaching the station. It was a Vorthan science vessel, its crew composed of the Coalition's most advanced researchers. As they drew closer, their instruments confirmed what their sensors were telling them. The impossible had occurred. Humanity had not only survived contact with a reality devourer, but had convinced it to become an ally in stabilizing local spacetime. The implications sent shockwaves through the hegemony fleet. If humans could communicate with these ancient entities, if they could turn cosmic threats into cosmic allies, then perhaps the long war against the darkness between stars might finally be winnable. Subject Alpha completed its repairs and began to withdraw from normal spacetime, but not before leaving something behind. Through the neural link, it transmitted a gift to Sarah, a map showing the locations of other scattered entities and the knowledge needed to help them find their way home. The responsibility was enormous, but so was the opportunity. As the entity faded from their reality, Sarah felt her consciousness returning to her human form. But she was changed, carrying within her mind the seeds of understanding that would reshape humanity's role in the cosmos. 3 days after the entity's departure, Station Omega-7 had become the most important location in known space. Representatives from all 7 hegemony species had arrived to study what humanity had accomplished, their ships forming a protective perimeter around the research facility. But Sarah Chen barely noticed the political circus developing outside her medical bay window. She was too busy trying to understand what she had become. Dr. Webb ran another neural scan, his expression growing more concerned with each reading. "The modifications to your brain structure are extensive," he reported quietly. "The entity didn't just communicate with you, Sarah. It integrated some of its knowledge directly into your neural pathways." Sarah flexed her fingers, watching sparks of blue energy dance between them. Through her enhanced perception, she could see the quantum fluctuations that governed matter at the subatomic level. The station around her appeared translucent, its solid walls revealed as mostly empty space held together by electromagnetic forces. "Can you reverse it?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "I don't think reversal is possible," Marcus admitted, "but I'm not sure it would be advisable even if we could. The knowledge you've gained, the abilities you've developed, they might be humanity's greatest advantage in dealing with future encounters." The door to the medical bay chimed, and Ambassador Kethvar entered. The Vorthon diplomat moved with the fluid grace characteristic of his species, his 6 arms gesturing in complex patterns that conveyed meaning beyond spoken words. His translator device rendered his speech into precise formal English. "Commander Chen, the Hegemony Council has reached a decision regarding your station's discovery," he announced. "We wish to offer humanity a new role within our alliance, no longer as junior partners but as specialists in xenological communication and cosmic threat assessment." Sarah sat up straighter, ignoring the protests from her still-recovering nervous system. "What exactly are you proposing?" Kethavar's primary eyes focused on her while his secondary pair monitored Marcus's reactions. "For millennia, the hegemony has fought a defensive war against entities like the one you encountered. We flee from them, contain them when possible, destroy them when necessary, but you proved that another approach is viable. We want humanity to lead a new initiative, one focused on communication rather than destruction." The implications were staggering. Humanity had been part of the hegemony for only 5 years, considered a primitive species that had barely achieved interstellar travel. Now they were being offered a leadership role in dealing with the most dangerous threats in the galaxy. There would be conditions, the ambassador continued. Your species would need to establish specialized training programs for individuals capable of neural interface with alien entities. You would be responsible for developing new technologies that could facilitate communication across dimensional barriers, and you would need to accept the risks that come with regular contact with beings that exist beyond normal space-time. Marcus stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overriding his caution. "How many entities are we talking about? How widespread is this phenomenon?" "Our estimates suggest there are thousands of scattered entities throughout the galaxy," Kethavar replied. "Most remain dormant, but cosmic events occasionally awaken them. Supernovae, gravitational anomalies, the collapse of massive stars. Each awakening has the potential to destabilize entire star systems." Sarah stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the swirling nebula that had brought Subject Alpha to their attention. The entity's map burned in her memory, showing her the locations of its scattered kindred across vast distances. She could feel their loneliness like physical pain, isolated beings crying out for contact that never came. "What about the risks to our volunteers?" she asked. "The neural integration process nearly killed me, and I had the advantage of a cooperative entity. What happens when we encounter one that's hostile, or completely alien to our thought patterns?" "That is a significant concern," the ambassador acknowledged. "But your species has shown remarkable adaptability. You succeeded where others have failed for thousands of years. We believe humans possess some fundamental quality that makes this kind of communication possible." Over the following weeks, as the hegemony's offer was debated by Earth's governments, Sarah worked with Marcus to understand her new capabilities. The entity had left her with more than just knowledge. It had given her the ability to perceive reality from multiple dimensional perspectives simultaneously. She could see how actions in normal space created ripples across higher dimensions, how thoughts and emotions left patterns in quantum fields. The breakthrough came when she realized she could use these abilities to enhance communication with normal aliens as well. During a meeting with the hegemony delegation, Sarah found herself translating not just words but underlying concepts that were lost in conventional language barriers. She could sense the emotional undertones in alien speech patterns, detect deception through quantum fluctuations in their biological systems. "This is unprecedented," declared Dr. Jalès, the Teruvian xenobiologist who had been studying human communication methods. "You are translating meaning at levels we never knew existed. Cultural concepts that require hours of explanation are being conveyed instantly." The demonstration convinced the last skeptics among the hegemony leadership. Humanity's offer was formally accepted, and Sarah found herself appointed as the first director of Cosmic Communication Services. Her code name within the organization became Voidwalker, a reference to her ability to navigate between dimensions of reality. The first training facility was established on Luna, hidden within an existing research complex to avoid public attention. Sarah personally selected the initial candidates, looking for individuals who displayed the unique combination of mental flexibility and emotional stability required for dimensional communication. Former deep space pilots, meditation masters, theoretical physicists, and even a few artists whose work explored the boundaries between reality and imagination. The training was grueling and dangerous. Each candidate had to learn to expand their consciousness beyond normal human limits while maintaining enough coherence to survive the experience. Some washed out early, unable to handle the disorientation of perceiving multiple dimensions simultaneously. Others made it through the preliminary phases only to suffer psychological breaks when they encountered their first alien entity. But those who succeeded became something new in human evolution. They could communicate with beings that existed partially outside normal spacetime, translate concepts that had no equivalence in any known language, and serve as bridges between realities that had never before been connected. 6 months after the Omega-7 incident, humanity responded to its first cosmic emergency. A reality devourer had awakened near the Altair system, its presence threatening to collapse the local spacetime matrix and destroy 3 inhabited worlds. The hegemony fleet arrived to find not chaos and destruction, but a human communication specialist already in contact with the entity. Lieutenant Maria Santos, one of Sarah's first successful graduates, had established a neural link with the creature and was guiding it through the dimensional repair process. What should have been a system-wide catastrophe became humanity's first official victory as cosmic mediators. The success established a pattern that would be repeated across the galaxy. When entities awakened, when cosmic threats emerged from the spaces between stars, the call went out for human intervention. The species that had been considered primitive newcomers became the guardians of reality itself. 2 years had passed since the Altair incident, and Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Nexus Station, humanity's first purpose-built facility for cosmic communication. The station existed in a carefully constructed pocket of stable spacetime, surrounded by quantum fields that could be adjusted to accommodate entities from any dimension. Through the transparent walls of the central chamber, she watched as her latest protege attempted contact with something that defied conventional description. Captain Jake Morrison floated in the neural interface pod, his consciousness extended through layers of reality that most humans couldn't even imagine. The entity he was communicating with appeared as a shifting geometric pattern that hurt to look at directly. It had emerged from a collapsing white dwarf in the Vega system, its awakening threatening to create a cascade failure that would turn the star into a cosmic weapon. "Contact established," Jake reported through the quantum link, his voice carrying harmonic overtones that indicated successful dimensional bridging. "The entity identifies itself as a harmony keeper, one of the reality gardeners. It's responding to what it perceives as damage to local spacetime caused by an artificial gravity well." Sarah nodded, understanding immediately. The Vega colony had been experimenting with gravitational manipulation technology, trying to create a stable wormhole for faster-than-light communication. They had no idea that their experiments were sending ripples through dimensions occupied by sleeping entities. "Tell the Harmony Keeper that we'll shut down the gravitational experiments," Sarah instructed. "Assure it that the damage was unintentional, and that we're willing to assist with repairs." Through the station's enhanced sensors, she watched the entity's pattern shift from agitated chaos to more organized pulses. The crisis was being resolved through communication rather than violence, another victory for humanity's diplomatic approach to cosmic threats. But Sarah's satisfaction was tempered by growing concerns about the long-term consequences of their success. Each human who underwent neural integration with cosmic entities returned changed, carrying within their minds knowledge and abilities that pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be human. Some adapted well, becoming powerful advocates for peaceful contact with alien civilizations. Others struggled with the psychological burden of perceiving reality from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Dr. Webb approached with a datapad containing the latest psychological evaluation reports. His expression was troubled, reflecting months of growing unease about the direction of their program. "We're losing more volunteers to integration syndrome," he reported quietly. 17 cases this month alone. Their minds are becoming so adapted to multidimensional perception that they can't function in normal reality anymore. Sarah reviewed the reports with growing alarm. Integration syndrome was a new condition that seemed to affect humans who spent too much time communicating with cosmic entities. Their brains became permanently altered, making them capable of incredible feats of perception and communication, but unable to relate to other humans or function in normal society. "What about the isolation protocols?" she asked. "Are we providing adequate support for returning volunteers?" "We're doing everything we can," Marcus replied. But the problem isn't psychological in the conventional sense. These individuals are evolving beyond baseline humanity. They're becoming something new, and we don't know how to help them integrate back into human society. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Hegemony Command. Admiral Vexthul, the Coalition's senior military commander, appeared on the main display. His insectoid features were arranged in patterns that Sarah had learned to interpret as extreme agitation. "Director Chen, we have a developing crisis in the Centauri cluster," the Admiral announced without preamble. "Multiple entities have awakened simultaneously, and they're not responding to our standard communication protocols. We need your team's immediate assistance." Sarah felt a chill of apprehension. Simultaneous awakenings were rare, and usually indicated some kind of cosmic disaster on a scale that threatened entire sectors of space. She quickly assembled her best communication specialists, including Jake Morrison and 3 other volunteers who had proven capable of handling multiple entity contacts. The journey to the Centauri cluster took 6 days at maximum hyperspace velocity, with the human team spending most of the trip in preparation chambers designed to expand their consciousness for multidimensional communication. By the time they arrived, the situation had deteriorated significantly. 16 separate entities floated in the space between stars, their combined presence creating distortions that threatened to tear apart the fabric of local reality. Hegemony fleets maintained a safe distance while automated probes attempted to gather data on the phenomenon. The readings were unlike anything in their records. "These aren't scattered individuals like we've encountered before," Jake observed as he studied the sensor data. "They're moving in coordinated patterns like they're working together towards some common goal." Sarah enhanced her perception through the neural interface, extending her awareness to encompass the entire region of space where the entities had gathered. What she discovered made her gasp in shock and recognition. The entities weren't working to damage reality. They were preparing to leave it entirely. "They're building a dimensional gateway," she announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "A massive structure that will allow them to return to their home dimension. But the energy requirements are enormous. If they complete the construction, it could destabilize this entire star cluster." The Hegemony fleet commanders immediately began discussing military options, but Sarah knew that conventional weapons would be useless against entities that existed partially outside normal space-time. Violence would only cause them to panic, potentially triggering the very disaster they were trying to prevent. "I need to make direct contact," she decided, "not just with one entity but with their collective consciousness. It's the only way to negotiate a solution that doesn't destroy everything within 50 light-years. Dr. Webb protested immediately. "Sarah, the neural stress of interfacing with 16 entities simultaneously could kill you. We've never attempted anything on this scale before." "Then we'll have to improvise," Sarah replied grimly. "Jake, I need you and the other specialists to serve as anchors. Maintain contact with my consciousness while I attempt full integration with the collective." The preparation took 4 hours, with human technicians and alien scientists working together to modify the communication equipment for unprecedented power levels. Sarah's neural interface was enhanced with quantum processors borrowed from Hegemony science vessels. giving her the processing power needed to handle multiple dimensional contacts simultaneously. As the connection established, Sarah felt her consciousness explode outward across impossible distances. Suddenly, she was experiencing existence from 16 different perspectives, each one showing her the universe from a completely alien point of view. The entities welcomed her presence with surprise and delight, recognizing her as the first human to achieve full collective integration. Through their shared awareness, Sarah learned the truth about the cosmic entities and their relationship to reality itself. They were refugees from a dying dimension, survivors of a universe that had reached the end of its natural lifespan. For eons, they had wandered through other realities, maintaining the stability of space-time as a way of giving meaning to their exile. But now they had found a way home. The dimensional gateway they were constructing would allow them to return to their origin point, where their collective consciousness could work to restore their dying universe. The process would require enormous amounts of energy, drawn from the quantum foundations of local space-time. Sarah realized with growing horror that completing the gateway would indeed destroy the Centauri cluster and potentially damage reality across a much wider area, but she also understood the entity's desperate desire to save their dying home. They weren't malicious. They were simply willing to sacrifice anything to prevent the extinction of their entire species. The solution came to her in a flash of inspiration that bridged human ingenuity with cosmic knowledge. Instead of drawing energy from local spacetime, the gateway could be powered by voluntary contributions from the hegemony's most advanced civilizations. The technology existed to safely channel massive amounts of energy across dimensional barriers. It had simply never been attempted on this scale. The negotiation that followed lasted 3 days and involved representatives from dozens of star systems. In the end, the hegemony agreed to provide the energy needed for the gateway in exchange for the entity's knowledge of multidimensional physics and their assistance in stabilizing other cosmic threats. The construction of the Great Gateway took 8 months and required the cooperation of every major civilization in the galaxy. Sarah watched from the command bridge of Nexus Station as massive energy collectors were positioned throughout the Centauri cluster, each one capable of channeling the power output of an entire star. The project represented the largest cooperative effort in galactic history, bringing together technologies and resources from species that had been enemies for millennia. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. As Sarah continued her deep integration sessions with the Entity Collective, she discovered that their knowledge of multidimensional physics could revolutionize space travel throughout the galaxy. The same principles that powered their dimensional gateway could be used to create stable wormholes, allowing instantaneous communication and travel across vast distances. The implications are staggering, Dr. Webb reported during one of their planning sessions. If we can adapt their technology for general use, we could connect every inhabited system in the galaxy through a permanent network of dimensional tunnels. Travel times measured in years could be reduced to days or even hours. The Hegemony Council was equally excited by the possibilities, but they were also concerned about the risks. Multidimensional technology was inherently dangerous, requiring precise control over forces that could accidentally tear holes in reality itself. They needed operators who could safely manage such systems. Individuals with the unique combination of human intuition and cosmic awareness that Sarah's program had been developing. As the Gateway project neared completion, Sarah found herself facing a difficult decision. The Entity Collective had offered her something unprecedented, the chance to accompany them back to their home dimension. She would become the first human to visit another universe, gaining knowledge that could advance humanity's understanding of cosmic physics by thousands of years. The risk is enormous, Marcus warned during their final planning meeting. We have no way of knowing if human consciousness can survive in a completely alien reality. You could be destroyed the moment you cross the dimensional barrier. Sarah stood at the observation window, watching the final preparations for the gateway's activation. The massive structure floated in space like a metallic flower, its petals composed of crystallized space-time that bent light into impossible patterns. Energy collectors throughout the cluster hummed with barely contained power, ready to channel the combined output of 47 stars into a single-dimensional breach. Someone has to take the risk, she replied quietly. The knowledge the entities are offering could save countless worlds from cosmic disasters we haven't even imagined yet. Besides, I'm not the same person who first encountered Subject Alpha. The neural integration has changed me in ways that might actually make survival possible. Jake Morrison entered the command center, his expression reflecting the mixed emotions that had become common among the communication specialists. Each successful contact with cosmic entities left them more isolated from baseline humanity, better able to understand alien perspectives but less capable of relating to their own species. "The collective is ready for the final transfer," he reported. "They're expressing what I can only interpret as gratitude for our assistance." Apparently, this level of cooperation between dimensional natives and refugees is unprecedented in their experience. The activation began at precisely 1400 Standard Time, with energy from across the cluster flowing into the gateway's crystalline structure. Space-time around the device began to warp and twist, creating visual distortions that hurt to look at directly. Through her enhanced perception, Sarah could see the dimensional barrier thinning, revealing glimpses of an alien universe beyond. The entity collective began their departure, their forms shifting as they adapted to the changing dimensional environment. One by one, they passed through the gateway, their essence dissolving into patterns of pure information that could survive the transition between realities. As each entity departed, it left behind a gift of knowledge, complex mathematical formulae that described the fundamental forces governing multidimensional space. Sarah's moment of decision arrived with the departure of the final entity. The gateway would remain stable for only a few more minutes before the energy reserves were exhausted, and the dimensional barrier sealed permanently. If she was going to make the crossing, it had to be now. "Final systems check complete," Jake reported. "The portable life support unit is functioning normally, and the dimensional anchor is synchronized with our local coordinates. In theory, you should be able to return within 72 hours. Sarah stepped into the transfer chamber, feeling the weight of history settling on her shoulders. She was about to become humanity's first interdimensional explorer, crossing into an alien universe to gain knowledge that could transform their understanding of reality itself. The responsibility was overwhelming, but so was the opportunity. "Initiating transfer sequence," she announced, her voice carrying through the communication system to every ship in the fleet. "If this works, humanity will take its first step into a larger cosmos. If it doesn't, remember that the attempt was worth making." The transition was indescribable. Sarah felt her consciousness stretching across dimensional boundaries that had no equivalent in human experience. Reality twisted around her, familiar concepts like space and time becoming fluid suggestions rather than absolute laws. For a terrifying moment, she thought she might be lost forever in the spaces between universes. Then suddenly she was through, floating in an alien cosmos where the stars burned with colors that had no names. The entity collective surrounded her, their forms now revealed in their true magnificence. They were beings of pure thought and mathematical precision, ancient gardeners who had spent eons maintaining the balance between order and chaos across multiple realities. Through direct consciousness transfer, they shared with Sarah the history of their species and the secrets of multidimensional physics. She learned about the cosmic cycles that governed the birth and death of universes, the hidden connections between seemingly separate realities, and the delicate balance that prevented existence itself from collapsing into primordial chaos. But the most important discovery was the revelation that Earth's universe was entering a critical phase in its development. Within the next 1,000 years, it would face challenges that could destroy countless civilizations unless properly managed. The entities had been preparing for this transition, working to ensure that reality remained stable during the dangerous period ahead. "Your species shows great promise," the collective communicated through patterns of thought that bypassed language entirely. "You have the rare combination of curiosity and caution needed to serve as reality's guardians during the coming trials. But you must prepare carefully, for the challenges ahead will test every aspect of your civilization." Sarah's time in the alien universe passed like a dream, filled with revelations that would take decades to fully understand. When she finally returned through the gateway, carrying within her mind knowledge that no human had ever possessed, she found that only 12 hours had passed in normal spacetime. The debriefing took 3 weeks, with teams of scientists working around the clock to document and analyze the information Sarah had gained. The implications were staggering. Humanity had been chosen by cosmic forces to serve as guardians of reality itself, protectors of the fundamental laws that kept existence stable. But with that honor came enormous responsibility. The knowledge Sarah had gained revealed dozens of potential cosmic threats that could emerge over the coming centuries. Reality storms that could erase entire star systems, dimensional parasites that fed on the fabric of space-time itself, and ancient weapons left behind by extinct civilizations that could accidentally destroy the universe if activated. The Hegemony Council formally recognized humanity's new status as the galaxy's cosmic guardians, granting them authority over all matters related to multidimensional threats. Special training facilities were established throughout human space, and the Neural Interface program was expanded to train thousands of new communication specialists. Sarah found herself appointed as the first director of cosmic security, responsible for coordinating humanity's response to threats that existed beyond normal space-time. Her codename within the organization evolved from Voidwalker to something that reflected her unique status as the only human to have visited another universe and returned. 5 years after the Gateway incident, Sarah Chen had become something beyond human classification. Standing in the observation deck of Citadel Prime, humanity's most advanced cosmic monitoring station, she existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions while maintaining enough coherence to function in normal reality. The transformation was visible in the way light seemed to bend around her, how her shadow sometimes showed reflections of other universes. The neural integration process had evolved far beyond the crude experiments conducted on Station Omega-7. Sarah's mind now contained a vast archive of cosmic knowledge, including detailed maps of interdimensional space and the locations of thousands of sleeping entities throughout the galaxy. She had become humanity's ultimate weapon against cosmic threats. But the price had been her connection to ordinary human existence. "Ma'am, we're detecting another awakening in the Arcturus sector," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres, one of the new generation of communication specialists trained in the advanced neural interface techniques. "The entity appears to be responding to gravitational waves from a recent stellar collision." Sarah expanded her perception across the dimensional barriers, instantly analyzing the distant threat. The awakening entity was smaller than most they had encountered, probably a maintenance construct that had been dormant for millions of years. But its location near a busy shipping lane made it potentially dangerous to civilian traffic. "Dispatch Team 7, she ordered. "Standard containment and communication protocols. If the entity is cooperative, offer relocation assistance to a more suitable dimensional pocket." The efficiency of the operation would have amazed the scientists who had struggled to communicate with Subject Alpha years earlier. Humanity's cosmic guardians now handled such incidents as routine emergencies, their enhanced abilities allowing them to resolve most threats within hours rather than days. But Sarah's attention was focused on a more disturbing pattern emerging from the long-term data. The frequency of entity awakenings had increased dramatically over the past year, far beyond what could be explained by natural cosmic events. Something was systematically disturbing the dimensional barriers that kept the ancient beings dormant. Dr. Webb approached with a data analysis that confirmed her suspicions. His hair had gone completely white during the years of exposure to cosmic radiation and dimensional energies, but his mind remained as sharp as ever. "The pattern is definitely artificial," he reported. "Someone or something is deliberately triggering these awakenings. The dimensional disturbances show signs of technological manipulation rather than natural phenomena." Sarah felt a chill of recognition as she reviewed the data. The signature patterns were familiar, matching certain weapon technologies described in the cosmic archives she had gained from the Entity Collective. Ancient civilizations had once developed methods for awakening dimensional beings as weapons of war, using them to destroy enemy star systems by destabilizing local spacetime. "Assemble the senior staff," she ordered. "We may be facing our first genuine cosmic war threat." The briefing room filled with humanity's most experienced dimensional specialists, individuals whose minds had been expanded to perceive reality from multiple perspectives simultaneously. Each one carried scars from their neural integration processes, physical and psychological marks that set them apart from baseline humanity. Sarah activated the holographic display, showing the pattern of entity awakenings across a three-dimensional map of local galactic space. The distribution was clearly artificial, forming geometric patterns that suggested deliberate military strategy. "Someone is using the ancient entities as weapons," she announced without preamble. "The awakenings aren't random. They're part of a coordinated assault on galactic civilization. Based on the pattern analysis, I estimate we have less than 6 months before they target core worlds. Commander Morrison, now one of Sarah's most trusted lieutenants despite his increasing alienation from normal human society, studied the projection with enhanced perception that allowed him to see patterns invisible to conventional analysis. The targeting priorities suggest the attackers have detailed knowledge of hegemony military deployments, he observed. They're systematically awakening entities near strategic installations and major population centers. This isn't just terrorism. It's preparation for invasion. The identification of the threat came from an unexpected source, deep within the cosmic archives that Sarah carried in her enhanced consciousness. She found records of a civilization called the Devourers. They were an ancient species that had been exiled from the galaxy millions of years ago for their attempts to weaponize dimensional entities. According to the records, they had been banished to the dark spaces between galaxies, cut off from the resources needed to threaten civilized worlds. But they've found a way back, Sarah realized with growing alarm. The dimensional technology we've been developing, the Gateway Project, all of our advances in multi-dimensional physics. We've been rebuilding the same pathways they need to return to our galaxy. The implications were terrifying. Humanity's greatest achievement, their mastery of dimensional communication and travel, had inadvertently provided their ancient enemies with the means to return. The Devourers were using humanity's own technology against them, turning the galaxy's cosmic guardians into unwitting accomplices in their invasion. Emergency sessions were called with the Hegemony Council, but the alien leaders struggled to comprehend the scope of the threat. Most species still thought of dimensional entities as natural disasters, rather than potential weapons. The concept of an enemy that could weaponize the fundamental forces of reality was beyond their experience. You're asking us to believe that someone is deliberately awakening these creatures, Admiral Vexthol protested during one particularly heated discussion. The energy requirements alone would be impossible for any known civilization. Sarah felt her patience wearing thin as she tried to explain concepts that required multidimensional awareness to fully understand. The gulf between her enhanced consciousness and normal thinking had grown so wide that communication with baseline intelligence was becoming increasingly difficult. The Devourers aren't using conventional energy sources, she explained, forcing herself to translate cosmic concepts into language that three-dimensional minds could process. They're harvesting power directly from the dimensional barriers themselves, feeding off the same forces that keep reality stable. The truth finally convinced the hegemony leadership when long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures approaching from intergalactic space. The Devourer fleet was returning, their ships powered by dimensional engines that could tear holes in reality itself. Conservative estimates suggested they would reach the outer rim of the galaxy within 18 months. Preparation for the cosmic war began immediately, with every major civilization contributing resources to humanity's dimensional defense program. New training facilities were constructed on a dozen worlds, pushing the limits of neural interface technology to create as many cosmic guardians as possible before the invasion arrived. But Sarah knew that numbers alone wouldn't be enough. The Devourers had been perfecting their dimensional warfare techniques for millions of years, while humanity had been working with such technology for less than a decade. They needed an advantage that their enemies wouldn't expect, something that could turn the cosmic guardians from defenders into an offensive force. The solution came from the most dangerous source imaginable. Deep within the cosmic archives, Sarah found references to a legendary weapon called the Reality Anchor. It was a device capable of stabilizing dimensional barriers across vast areas of space, preventing entities from being awakened or manipulated by external forces. The weapon had been built by the same ancient civilization that had originally banished the Devourers, but its location had been lost for eons. Finding the Reality Anchor would require a journey into the deepest parts of interdimensional space, regions where the laws of physics became suggestions and consciousness itself could be torn apart by cosmic forces. It was a mission that only someone with Sarah's unique combination of human intuition and cosmic awareness could possibly survive. As she prepared for the most dangerous journey in human history, Sarah reflected on how far she had come. Since that first encounter with Subject Alpha, she had evolved From a simple space station commander into something that transcended the boundaries between human and cosmic consciousness. Soon she would discover whether that transformation had been enough to save not just humanity, but the entire galaxy from an ancient enemy that fed on reality itself. The journey to find the reality anchor took Sarah deeper into interdimensional space than any conscious being had ever traveled. Her modified consciousness, now more cosmic entity than human, navigated through layers of reality where time flowed backward and space folded in on itself. The portable dimensional anchor that connected her to normal spacetime strained under forces that could erase entire star systems from existence. Through the cosmic archives embedded in her enhanced mind, Sarah followed clues left by civilizations that had vanished before Earth's sun was born. The reality anchor had been hidden in a pocket dimension that existed between realities, protected by defenses designed to destroy anyone who sought to use it for conquest rather than protection. The guardians of the ancient weapon tested her thoroughly, forcing her consciousness through trials that revealed every aspect of her motivations and capabilities. They were the last remnants of the civilization that had built the anchor, beings who had transcended physical existence to become living mathematics. Only after proving that humanity's intentions were pure did they grant her access to their ultimate creation. The reality anchor was unlike anything in the cosmic archives. It existed as both a physical device and a conceptual framework, a machine that could impose mathematical order on the chaos of multidimensional space. More importantly, it could be operated only by a consciousness that understood both human creativity and cosmic principles, making Sarah uniquely qualified to wield it. But using the anchor required a sacrifice that she had not anticipated. To power the device across galactic distances, she would need to channel the combined consciousness of every human who had undergone neural integration. The process would link her mind to thousands of cosmic guardians, creating a collective intelligence powerful enough to stabilize dimensional barriers throughout the galaxy. The transformation would be irreversible. Sarah would become something beyond individual existence, a living nexus between humanity and the cosmic forces that governed reality. She would gain the power to protect countless worlds from dimensional threats, but lose forever her connection to the human experience that had shaped her. As the Devourer fleet approached the galaxy's outer rim, Sarah made her choice. Standing in the heart of the reality anchor's control chamber, surrounded by crystalline structures that bridged the gap between thought and physics, she initiated the consciousness transfer protocol that would change her forever. The merger began with Dr. Webb and the original team from Station Omega 7, their minds linking with hers across impossible distances. Then Jake Morrison and the first generation of communication specialists, followed by hundreds of cosmic guardians scattered throughout human space. Each connection added new perspectives and abilities to the growing collective consciousness. The experience was overwhelming and transcendent simultaneously. Sarah felt her individual identity dissolving into something vast and multifaceted, a group mind that encompassed the dreams and fears of every human who had ever touched the cosmic realm. But at the center of the collective, her core personality remained intact, serving as the guiding intelligence that would direct their combined power. When the transformation completed, Sarah, who was now more than Sarah, activated the reality anchor, with the full force of humanity's collective will behind her. The effect rippled across the galaxy in waves of stabilized spacetime, creating barriers that no dimensional manipulation could penetrate. Every sleeping entity was protected from external awakening, every dimensional barrier reinforced against artificial disturbance. The Devourer fleet found their weapons useless against the new cosmic defenses. Their dimensional engines, designed to tear holes in reality, simply bounced harmlessly off the stabilized barriers. Their attempts to awaken ancient entities as weapons failed completely, leaving them with only conventional military technology against the combined forces of the hegemony. The war that followed was brief and decisive. Without their dimensional weapons, the Devourers were outmatched by the galaxy's united civilizations. Their fleet was defeated in a series of conventional battles. Their survivors offered the choice between exile or integration into galactic society under strict supervision. But the true victory was the transformation of humanity's role in the cosmos. No longer were they simply cosmic guardians who responded to threats as they emerged. They had become the reality keepers, a collective consciousness that actively maintained the stability of spacetime itself. Through Sarah's sacrifice and transcendence, humanity had evolved into something that existed simultaneously in normal space and cosmic dimensions. The individual members of the collective continued their lives as before, but they were now connected by an invisible network of consciousness that spanned the galaxy. When cosmic threats emerged, they responded with perfect coordination, their enhanced abilities guided by the vast intelligence that Sarah had become. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. The galaxy entered an age of unprecedented stability and prosperity, protected by guardians who existed beyond the boundaries of normal existence. Trade routes opened through stabilized dimensional channels, connecting worlds that had been isolated by vast distances. Scientific discoveries accelerated as researchers gained access to cosmic principles that had been hidden for eons. And at the center of it all, Sarah Chen existed as the nexus of human consciousness and cosmic awareness. She was no longer an individual in any conventional sense, but something far greater and more important. She was the living embodiment of humanity's greatest achievement, the bridge between the familiar world of human experience and the infinite possibilities of cosmic existence. The code name Voidwalker evolved into something more fitting for her new role. Throughout the galaxy, she became known simply as the Guardian, the consciousness that watched over reality itself and ensured that the delicate balance between order and chaos remained intact. Legends spread among the younger species about the human who had sacrificed her individual existence to save the galaxy. They spoke of her as a being who could appear anywhere in space-time, where threats to reality emerged, a cosmic protector whose power came not from advanced technology but from the willing sacrifice of her humanity in service of something greater. But those who knew the truth understood that Sarah's sacrifice had actually been humanity's greatest triumph. Through her transformation, the entire species had taken their place as the galaxy's eternal guardians, protectors of reality itself, who would stand watch against cosmic threats for as long as the universe existed. In the deepest parts of space, where ancient entities slumbered in their dimensional cocoons, they dreamed of the human consciousness that had learned to speak their language and offer them friendship instead of fear. And in those dreams, the legend of the codename lived on, a story of courage and sacrifice that had transformed not just one woman, but an entire species into something capable of protecting all existence. From the dangers that lurked in the spaces between realities, the legend behind the codename had become the foundation of galactic civilization itself, proof that even the smallest species could achieve cosmic significance through determination, sacrifice, and the willingness to reach beyond the boundaries of their own existence. Sarah Chen had become immortal not through technology or alien intervention, but through the simple act of caring more about the future of all life than her own individual survival. And across the galaxy, whenever reality itself faced threats too great for conventional defenses, the Guardian watched and protected, her consciousness spanning dimensions to ensure that the universe remained a place where life could flourish and civilizations could grow toward their own cosmic destinies.